Welcome to Dan Really Likes Wine and a very special Christmas edition. I'm looking fairly festive in one of my collection of rather garish 1980s Thomas Magnum shirts. As soon as I'm finished filming, I'm straight out to the swimming pool to finish off the wine that we use for today's shoot, to enjoy some summer sunshine and to start thinking about Christmas Day, because Christmas Day in the Nicol household is a very important one. The kids are up almost as early as I am because we're all equally excited about presents. My wife spends the first half an hour fighting a losing battle to get us to go back to sleep, and then we're all up around the Christmas tree, and we begin a tradition that my parents started many years ago. They would endure our Christmas morning excitement, myself and my sisters, by having a traditional Christmas morning breakfast of oysters and champagne, which is a tradition I highly recommend. Get out that cup classique, start your day in style and take it in from there. But once that's done, once the presents are opened, the family has all got together. It's a big Greek family on my wife's side, so there'll be a whole pile of people, loads of food, plenty of wine. It's my important job of the day, and that is providing Christmas lunch. And I like a very traditional Christmas lunch. I like to do turkey and I like to do gammon. And so what I decided to do is today give you 4 wines. It'll work quite well with my Christmas lunch. If you're doing something similar, then some good suggestions, I hope. But even if not, they'll give you an idea of a couple of wines that might go with some traditional Christmas meals. And you can make some choices based on that in terms of how you're lining up your cellar selection for Christmas Day. Now, I'm not doing the bubbles for breakfast. We did quite a few bubbles just a couple of weeks ago with the Festival of Cup Classique and Champagne down in Franschhoek. Daryl Robertson creating what was another fabulous event. Only heard good things. Sadly couldn't make it out there myself, but I believe it was a wonderful, wonderful day, and it was a great selection of bubbles on show. What I will go with, though, are the wines that I think will get me through my Christmas Day. And I'm going to start with a wine that I admit I don't always give the best press to, and that is Sauvignon Blanc. And it is a wine that is massively popular in South Africa, it's massively popular around the world, and it's really the definitive summer white wine. It is the go-to wine for so many South Africans. Our biggest selling white wine is still Chenin Blanc. It's the biggest production we have, but Sauvignon Blanc you'll find in most South African houses over the course of the summer. And rightly so. It's crisp, it's refreshing, it's a nice easy drink to get stuck into. And so this, I think, will be perfect once the champagne has been poured and you've got that mid-morning lull. Perhaps you've got a bit of smoked salmon on the go, you're clearing up the Christmas wrapping paper, the kids are already on a sugar high and being impossible, their nets off the swimming pool, and you're getting into the Christmas festive spirit. You want something that'll cool you down either outside by the pool or, in my case, inside around the oven, because the kitchen gets pretty warm. And so I think this will work really nicely. Crisp and refreshing from an estate I've had a fair amount of wine from over time, including their Sauvignon Blanc. Now, Tokara has many claims to fame. Its views are terrific up in the valley, looking down across Stellenbosch. There are wonderful pieces of art to have a look at. There is some terrific olive oil as well. And their restaurant, I've had a number of meals there. Michael Jordan, the other board member on Dan Really Likes Wine, which is a very loose term, he and I have board meetings at Tokara from time to time and do very important things like compare notes on food and wine. And so I know Tokara fairly well, and I've always enjoyed their wine. They've had some great winemakers over the years, and this is a wine that is, I think, in sync with what a lot of people will be drinking. Now, I prefer my white wine a little older. I like to give it a little more time. A 2019 Sauvignon Blanc is extremely fresh, but in Johannesburg in particular, there's often the feeling that the date is actually an expiry date rather than a vintage, and we must drink it before the end of 2019. And if you do like your Sauvignon Blanc fresh, that's absolutely perfect. And this is one that's not too expensive and gives you just a really nice, honest glass of refreshing Sauvignon Blanc. The important thing, and I've said this many times, I will continue to say it many times, is the temperature. I've had it in the fridge, but not for too long. I've taken it out, and so although it is cool, it's not ice cold. Ice cold is great for the first mouthful if you're just trying to break the heat of the day, but you lose so much. You lose the notes if you freeze them out. You just subdue a wine that doesn't deserve that. And there we go. Because it's just slightly warmer than ice cold, I'm getting just a fresh burst coming out of that glass. And so what makes this a wine that I will very happily drink is not just the nice big ripe gooseberry feel to it, it's the fact that it is not battery acid. And I say that smilingly, but there is a lot of particularly very new, particularly Sauvignon Blanc, but white wine across the board, when it's just too young, you feel that it's just gently stripping the enamel off your teeth. This doesn't do that. There's a little bit of sharpness to it, but it's almost imperceptible, and it falls away in the context of what's a really smooth glass of Sauvignon Blanc. And in fact, I might even have that back in the fridge just for another 10-15 minutes. Yes, it's slightly cooler, but not by too much. And the other thing to do, I'm not a fan of ice in wine. I don't think it does wine any favours. So rather just pour a smaller glass and drink it faster, and then you won't have a problem with your wine warming up too much in the glass. If you have to use ice, then so be it. But I reckon the smaller glasses keep the wine at a nice cool, not ice cold temperature, and you'll get the best out of it. So a nice, simple South African Sauvignon Blanc. It is fresh, it is summer friendly, and there is my Christmas morning started. So I finished my Tokara, and thank you very much to the Tokara team. So Sauvignon Blanc is done. Now it's on to lunch. Now the two things that I will make are turkey and gammon. Now turkey fills a lot of people with terror, either cooking it or more regularly actually having to eat it. I'm sure you've all got an elderly relative who's cooked a piece of turkey to death, and you've basically eaten sawdust on a bed of cardboard over the course of Christmas and tried to drown it out with anything liquid to inject a flicker of life into an extremely dead bird. Turkey can be difficult, but before I give you the wine that I will have with my turkey, I'll suggest you get online. If you're making turkey, go and look for Gordon Ramsay's recipe for turkey made with butter and lemon. Now, it's a recipe that will probably nudge you over the edge if you have any sort of cardiac arrest history. It is proper heart attack stuff. You're basically taking an entire block of butter, leaving it out for 15-20 minutes just so it's softened a bit, and working garlic, lemon juice, parsley, a little bit of salt and pepper into that, and then you're lifting the skin off the turkey and massaging that butter underneath, popping inside a couple of half lemons into the cavity, a couple of bay leaves, and then covering the top with either bacon or macon. It doesn't really make a difference, just so it doesn't burn, and then pop in. The great thing about turkey is you've got that little red piece of plastic that pops out when it's done, so it shows you when it's just about perfect. But because you've got all that butter in, it does make it so moist. And the problem with turkey generally being bone dry is that that problem is no longer there. Basted with all that butter and that lemon juice, it becomes a really moist and delightful dish. So I'll have a couple of turkeys in the oven, and alongside of them I will be drinking some of this. Now, I drank some of this at a dinner party a few weeks ago. I hosted an evening with Neil Ellis, the dazzlingly good chef. I think he's on a lot of narcotics. Some of the dishes he comes up with are absolutely mad, but he does them quite brilliantly. And so the wine that I'd served up for the night had a fair challenge in matching up to Neil Ellis's food. But this was one of the ones that did a pretty good job. It's the 2018 Hamilton Russell Chardonnay, the Hemelanada Valley Little Burgundy, full of great Pinot Noir and full of great Chardonnay. Ataraxia up at the top end is arguably the best known of the Chardonnays through the valley, but this, the Beauchard Finlayson, next door to Hamilton Russell, amongst a collection of really, really good Chardonnays, the Sumerage, the guys from Newton Johnson, all making some lovely wine, as de la Vierge, who won that Michelangelo award with some of theirs. But this is great. I love visiting Hamilton Russell. There's an elegant simplicity to their operation, not a huge variety in the wine, but what they do make, they make quite brilliantly. Their Pinot Noir is lovely, and as I discovered at my friend Selwyn's dinner a couple of weeks ago, their Chardonnay is brilliant as well. Oh. So first thing, temperature. It's just slightly warmer than I've left the Sauvignon Blanc. which is great. It's a slightly different taste. I prefer it just a little bit warmer. Not warm. Warm white wine is horrible, but cool rather than ice cold is perfect. And play around with it a little bit, pop it in and out of the fridge until you get a space that you are happy with. And again, leave the ice, drink it as it is, pour a slightly smaller glass. And I think I'm going to find that this with the turkey is going to be brilliant. There is just a very faint citrus hint in this, which is going to play off the citrus, the lemon in the turkey. So too the butter that goes in such huge volumes to the turkey matches the creaminess of this Chardonnay, and it's a wine that's going to be strong enough to compete with what's quite a rich turkey dish with all that butter, all that lemon and the meat as well, but is not going to overwhelm, overpower. I think they'll complement each other quite nicely. Two of the guests at the dinner party, Jeremy and Megan, who run a consulting business traveling the world, eating and drinking and doing a fine job of it, were particularly impressed with this. And I have to say that I am as well. A lot of Chardonnays who do a very good job, but I think this one from Hamilton Russell has got a date with Turkey Destiny on the 25th of December. Right, so that is sorted out. Then it's on to the second dish, and it's a dish that not everybody will eat. Pork is a meat that many people, for particular reasons, religious or otherwise, don't eat. We have some non-pork eaters in our family, and so I often do the turkey with bacon instead of bacon, just to be sure. It's really just to cover the turkey and stop it from burning. But for those people who do eat pork, a Christmas gammon is pretty hard to beat. And again, it's a very simple dish to make. You boil it up. You can get ready-made ones, but I like to boil my own, make sure that there's a nice collection of carrots and cloves and bay leaves all boiling up around. And then once it's done, the really important part is getting that rind off, getting on the honey mustard, which I use, popping the cloves in and getting it browned up underneath. And it's just so Moorish, and it's probably, along with cold pizza, the very best recovery food in the world for a day after indulgence. Big chunks of cold gammon from Christmas Day are one of Boxing Day's true delights. So I've looked at two wines here that I'll be interested to see if they do the job. And the first of those is from an estate I visited not long ago. I dropped in at Lanzerac, up that sweeping avenue of trees, the flowers in full bloom across the lawn, the Cape Dutch architecture. It is the stereotypical Cape wine estate, and I don't mean that in a derogatory way at all. It's the kind of stuff you make postcards from. And we had lunch at the tapas. Lunch was pleasant, but the wine was particularly good. Had the Mrs. English Chardonnay and the Le Général Left Bank and regular red blends of Bordeaux. Not inexpensive, but both very good. That Chardonnay, I think, would have also gone quite nicely with the turkey. But then they also have this, which I didn't try on the day, but it speaks to a conversation I had on the show a few weeks back when I was looking at the wine at the test kitchen, courtesy of Tanashi, the rockstar Zimbabwean sommelier, where we spoke about pinotage showing so much of its best form at the moment through the medium of rosé. Now, there was perhaps a time when you wouldn't have used your best grapes to make rosé, and the pinotage grapes that might have been used were an afterthought or some cast-offs. But that's not the case now. Rosé is being taken very seriously. The style and nature of pinotage has been taken very seriously. And there are now quite a few winemakers who are bringing those two spaces together and giving us a pinotage-based rosé that has depth, that has structure, that's not a big mouthful of old-style sugar, as many rosés were 10, 15 years ago, but also a pinotage that is in a far lighter and more delicate form. Now already it's just a lovely colour. You think of rosé as being salmonish pinkish. This has almost got more of a rose gold feel to it, veering into bronze. And it's got a very deep and fruity nose to it. And you'd probably get that it wasn't an out-and-out pinotage on a blind tasting if you couldn't see the colour, but it would certainly make you think a little bit to try and work out exactly what you were drinking. And the reason for picking this, apart from the fact that generally Christmas Day in our part of the world is pretty warm and you don't want anything too heavy, that rosé, I think here, It should be a serious enough wine to really do justice to the food, but also light and fun enough to fit in with the spirit of Christmas enjoyment. Ooh, that is lovely. A challenge for this will be how's it going to see off particularly a honey mustard sauce in which the gammon will be basted. But it's a battle I'm looking forward to see play out. It's wonderfully smooth, this. There's a very understated fruit to it. Oh, almost a nod towards those old style safari fruit squares where you had the sweet dry fruit, nowhere near as fruity and as sweet, but heading in that sort of direction. And that is lovely. Brilliant summer drink as well, but it's got enough in it as a rosé to pair beautifully with food. And I think it'll be a very interesting comparison with the gammon. But if you are eating gammon, there's a pretty good chance that you'd like some red wine. Now, again, because of the time of year, because of where we are, having a big Cabernet Sauvignon, massive Shiraz, a huge Springbok of a Bordeaux-style blend, often just a bit too heavy for the middle of day Christmas. You've already had plenty to eat and drink through the course of the morning. You're stuffing yourself again, and you want something that's not going to just add to that weight of the entire day's consumption. And so I've opted here for a wine that, in the spirit of its predecessor, is also a pinotage, but a pinotage that I have had reasonably recently. This is from Neil Ellis, who makes some lovely, lovely wine. And this particular pinotage, their Bottlery Hills Stellenbosch pinotage, which pays tribute to where this wine comes from, is a lighter style of pinotage. And I think that's great because it's still going to give me, I hope, the robustness of a red wine to go with that gammon, but not one that's just too heavy and drowns everything else out. So very, very dark colour. It doesn't have the lightness of a Pinot or a Grenache, and I had thought about those, and I think a Pinot Noir or Grenache could also be really good. Something like a Hamilton Russell Pinot Noir, for instance, could work really nicely. But this has just got a little bit more substance to it. And yeah, that's going to work really nicely. What you could also do with this, as you would with a number of South African red wines of a lighter persuasion, is pop it in the fridge for 15-20 minutes just to take a few degrees off it, remembering that room temperature in Bordeaux in 1824 is a little different to room temperature in the Klein Karoo in December 2019. And just not chill it, but just take some of the heat out of it, and that will add a little bit to the lightness. It's as long as you don't make it too cold, it's not going to affect the flavour, but it'll just help you in pairing with that big thick slab of gammon you've got sitting on your plate very, very invitingly. So I think that's going to be an interesting selection. I'm quite looking forward to it. I'll see how everybody else enjoys. We've got rather a lot of wine lined up for Christmas. There'll be plenty of other comparisons. Christmas is a great time for me for doing a bit of experimenting. You've often got bottles that somebody's given you as a Christmas present in the build-up, something from the office party. You've found a bottle that you didn't realise you had and you'd like to try it. And as I've been doing recently when I've been at restaurants, with guests, or with clients, with each course, opening a couple of different bottles that are different, and comparing them with a particular food. So having with a seared tuna, both some Chardonnay and some Pinot Noir, and seeing how they play off. You can do that here with the Pinotage Rosé and the Pinotage itself. You can do the Sauvignon Blanc with the Chardonnay with your turkey. And you do it with pretty much any wine. It's always good to explore, to try out new stuff, and to just learn a little bit more. Every single glass of wine is a discovery, not always good, but they always add to your knowledge and understanding of wine. And so that just leaves me to wish you a very happy Christmas. If you haven't, as a Christmas gift to yourself, join the Pick and Pay Wine Club, then do so. It's absolutely free of charge. You get loads of smart shopper points, you get free delivery for 6 bottles or more, and you get access to some really, really cool wine. And they do have some exceptional wine to add to your cellar over the course of this Christmas. So have a wonderful festive break, however you're celebrating it. Please remember to not drink and drive, to drink safely, to enjoy your wine and to cherish it, and to support South African wine, which really is in a fantastic space in terms of the quality we're making. Thanks to everybody who supported us through the course of 2019, and we'll see you next week for a special New Year's Eve preview, what we should be drinking to bring in 2020. Cheers.